Join me in giving a warm welcome to Joel Tosi and Jennifer Guerra.
All right, you're in charge of the clicker.
I think so.
Okay.
We good?
You guys, hold on. I'm super
please.
stoked to be here today. Last year I was here. I spent 2 days working the Verizon booth. I'm on stage now, Mom. I've made it. I mean.
Come on. There you go. So that's what we're going to do. That's us. That's me. That's Jen. I guaranteed Jen she would blow up on Twitter from doing this, so make sure you make that come true. The only other thing I can guarantee you is we will be nowhere near as funny as the previous one, so my apologies starting off on that. But let's get into it. Let's talk about some dojos. Everybody know this guy? Yeah, there you go. So you all passed the first test. Everybody read the book? Yeah, you're here. I thought one of the prerequisites is you had to read the book to come in, but I guess you all got in anyway. In there, he talks about these 3 ways, right? The third way, talking about improving, continuous learning, continuous improvement, and that's kind of what we're going to get into. All right. Make sure I push the wrong button here. What's a dojo, Jen?
Essentially, it's the place of the way, right? It's it can be a spot where you go, where teams go and collaborate and learn to work better, whether it's agile practices, CI/CD, and cloud. That's at least what we are selling in the Verizon Dojo. But really, it's a place where we emphasize learning over delivery. Bottom line.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. We bring groups together that have to build stuff, and they learn to build the right thing the right way, and they learn these things while doing stuff. Before I was doing these dojos, I used to teach courses. You like that one?
Yeah.
I used to teach courses. I used to do a lot of coaching stuff, and it was fun because I could sit with people for 2 days and say, "This is the right way to do stuff." And then I check with them 2 weeks later, and I would say, "How did it go?" "Oh, the course was great, but when I got back to work, I couldn't do any of that." And it just didn't. I mean, maybe you've experienced this, but that tends to kind of happen. So we're trying to get people to learn new things, but with reality. Like, your organizations have constraints. Let's not run away from them. The other answer to what a dojo is this. So there you go.
Yeah.
Now you can say you've all seen it. Even better, look, you're all certified. All right.
Yeah, so on the far left, this is a picture of the dojo at Verizon, located in Irving, by the way, so not too far from here. On the far left, you can see we've got some collaboration tables, and that's where the teams sit when they come into the dojo. And then towards the center, we've got some cubicle spaces that we've modified to also facilitate, pairing side by side. And we are actually standing in the demo lounge looking out towards our space. So it's about 8,000 square feet. We just, we remodeled it in January. We did not start out like this, and some of the photos later on are going to reflect that.
Yeah. So there you go. If anybody needs to leave, you got it. You've seen a dojo, you're good to go.
Yeah.
So anyway, look, this is the most effective way that I've experienced to getting teams to actually learn new things and having it stick. Right? We want we want new skills to stick, and we also want to get to this place where where learning becomes just the way you do things. It's not like this scary thing that you have to ask for permission for. So that's a dojo in a nutshell. This is our stuff we're going to talk about, and we'll get right into it for you.
Oh,
my darling assistant here, please tell everybody about yourself.
All right, so I am the Dojo Ops Manager at Verizon's Irving location. We are the flagship. We're the largest. We have 3 domestic locations, one in New Jersey, the one in Texas, and one in Florida. And we're looking to do some pop-ups later on throughout the year. Interesting fact, I spent 2 years supporting Verizon's board of directors. The secret I could tell you. Don't worry, my lips are sealed. But that job taught me how to keep a secret. And another interesting fact, I once had to be rescued from the top of a telephone pole. I can get into it later.
There you go. And doing a wonderful job in her first time up here. That's me. I'm nowhere near as interesting. I've been just doing this kind of stuff for a while. Before this, I was an architect for Red Hat. Got kind of tired of talking about technology, and I wanted to solve problems, so I kind of been doing this for a bit. And that's a picture. So now you know us. So here's the first, is Jez in here? Because I don't want to aggravate it. Oh, all right, boy. Oh, boy, this could get a little dicey. So in the DevOps Handbook, we're talking about what the book's going to focus on. And this is kind of like my first open challenge to the DevOps community. And it's like, not that anybody's good, bad, or indifferent, but even the DevOps Handbook. Imagine if I was taller. You could go up there and you'd say, we're going to focus on from code commit to running in production, and that's the good stuff. But you guys talk a lot about Goldratt and theory of constraints, and it's kind of like, well, that's cool. But what if your problems are just kind of manifested down here? Put your problems start back over here. And so when we're talking about these dojos, what we're trying to do is actually frame up the problems a little differently. Stop me if I'm wrong, Jen, but if you ever had any teams where the business always had ideas, and you just got to keep on building them, and we don't know if they're good or bad, but we're going to build a way. Is that, not at Verizon, at your previous employees, you might have experienced some of these things. So sometimes the challenges get manifested in the delivery side, but it's because we never think about should we even do it in the first place? Our ideas aren't being vetted, so we got to overbuild. Or maybe even before we get into the actual delivery side, I think Jez was mentioning it, maybe like the design stuff is being outsourced. And so now you have big batches of design being done for months, and then they come to delivery and say, okay, the design is perfect, just do it. I don't think you can optimize the right side without thinking about the left. And so what we're doing in these dojos is we want teams thinking about the whole picture. It's not just about how do I automate a pipeline, it's how do I know I'm doing the right thing, and then making sure I have systems that can sustain it.
Yeah, we had a team that we worked with earlier this year who said, listen, we know what we're building, we want to modify it, and so we did a week-long product discovery with them and walked through it all and questioned and asked, why are you building it, what's the value, all of that stuff. They got to the end of the week and said, yes, we're ready to go. They went on a field trip and they did a focus group with the users, right? The first day, they found out their assumptions were wrong. Here was the biggest learning. The biggest learning. They were designing for a screen, for a 27-inch monitor. When they got out into the field, they realized that the reps were using a 21-inch monitor. So all of these conversations about, well, where do we put the pill, and this is the layout. They hadn't gotten the feedback. They hadn't included the user when they were designing. So that's just one example of where we kind of, we needed to emphasize the first part of the diagram.
Yeah, so you got to take these things into consideration. The way you frame your problems affects the way you deliver it, so we got to be aware of these things and take it all in consideration. Another driving force behind the problems organizations are facing and why these dojos are interesting. Look, I don't work for anybody, so I can say a lot of bad things, but I won't. But in many organizations that I was in when I was employed, this was kind of how things went. We said we were a learning organization, we're all about learning, but you got 1 week a year to learn. Just make sure you ask for it in advance. But we're a learning organization. Learning is really important. But the reality of the world is, look, if you only get to do 2 conferences a year, then the majority of the year, by definition, scientifically speaking, is business as usual. You're not learning, you're just doing without asking. And so this is what we're trying to challenge people to think about is, if you really want to make this shift and you want to become a learning organization, it has to be a daily thing, it has to be continuous, it has to be what you do, it has to be inside your DNA. Last thing to think about here, so who here uses Confluence or Jira? Yeah, and so since you're all using it, it's obviously solved all of your problems. Everything that needs to be known in the universe is documented inside your repositories, right? And they're never wrong. Look, many organizations try to do things like center of excellences, kind of, repositories of knowledge. This is how stuff works. It works for some things. It doesn't work for everything. And so you can never express everything you know, and you can't write down your experiences. And so again, the idea is we're creating these learning environments where people are experiencing things so they actually can apply the things to their life and not just read about what somebody said on Confluence last year. So there you go. There's your problem that we're trying to do with dojos. We have to be holistic with everything. Can't be special events. And most importantly,
yeah, you're not going to learn it by a playbook, right? Sometimes you got to get in there and you learn all the different nuances.
Yeah. So that's why we want to do these dojos. So, you forgot the gong.
I forgot the gong,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Jen was going to bring a gong. We do a little gong here. It's really cool. But anyway, we're into the dojo. So here's the dojo in a nutshell.
Yeah. Dojo flow, dojo life cycle. Essentially what happens, we do an overview, right? We meet with, it can be, I term them grunts. I consider myself a grunt. It can be that. It can be a sponsor. It can be a manager. And they say, hey, we've got this problem. We want to come into the dojo. And then we do a little education. We talk about what the dojo is and what it's not, right? We say, hey, this is a place of learning. We emphasize learning over delivery. Come in with, about 3 weeks worth of work. So similar to the Sherpas at Walmart, they do 6-week engagements. So do we. And so we say, look, come in for 6 weeks. During those 6 weeks, we're going to work in 2.5-day sprints. And everybody usually goes, oh my God, we can't do 2.5 days. We're doing weekly or we're doing every 2 weeks, right? And we say, okay, well, there's a reason for it. We do it twofold. One is breaking the work down into 2.5-day sprints essentially creates some space for the team to fail, right? Fail fast. So if they decide to try something out and it doesn't work, no big deal, 2.5 days. The other thing is about muscle memory, right? So the more often you do something, because while the team is in the dojo, they're learning agile practices. So we go through the ceremonies. We say, hey, what time are your stand-ups? We set the cadence for them. Or rather, they set it for themselves. We just we guide them through that. And then we say, when are your demos? Every 2.5 days, you're going to do a demo. You are going to do a retro after that. We're going to sprint plan. We're going to keep doing it, right? And the idea is basically just to get people to, the more often they do it, they'll remember, they can take it back once they leave the dojo, which is when they start to apply their learnings. We're going to get into the specifics about all of these boxes, but that is as the overview of the dojo life cycle.
Yeah. The other thing to think about with this, it's not explicitly called out here, but these, everybody that wants to come in the dojo doesn't get to come into the dojo. It's not just because your manager said you really should do it or you're really excited about it. It doesn't mean it's a good fit. These are all meant to be is there interest? Are you a good fit? Okay, if that's the case, then does the team want to do this? Okay, if that's the case, can we actually help you? These are not meant to be gates, but we want to make sure that people coming in are excited about doing these things and it's a good fit for people. So how we choose teams? How do you do it, Jen? How do you find the good ones?
Everyone's going to have different requirements. For us, we are interested in looking for teams that want to be there, right? They want to be engaged. Another call out is, are they co-located, right? That's one of the requirements for dojo. We need to have everybody sitting together so they can easily swivel chair. We're also looking to upskill our employees, right? The dojos at Verizon are here to help with innovation. And so we want to make sure we have more employees than we do contractors, right? Contractors can leave at any time. We really want to invest in the folks that are here. Full stack team is another thing. We're looking for the people who are actually doing the work and the people making the decisions about the work that's being done. The goal is to create this continuous feedback loop, right? So we can demo and find out if we are building this the right way. If not, okay, let's go back. We can change it. No big deal.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
No, I think you got them all spot on. I'm gonna grab the next two real quick just so we don't get too back on time. This is a picture of me doing it. There you go. Working with teams, figuring it out. But let's get into the meat of it. So if we identify a team that wants to come in and we feel like they're a good fit and they're excited, you can't just start, right? You gotta think about what you're gonna do. So before a team starts their experience with us, we sit down for usually about a half day and we go through this chartering with the team coming in. And this is the general structure, but the idea first and foremost is, does the team all know why they're coming in? Do they know the problem they're trying to solve? And this is interesting because 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you the feature they need to build, but they don't know why they're building it. And if you don't know why you're building it, the feature is kind of nonsense because there might be a better way of doing it. And so we have to work with teams to figure out why are we doing this, why are we doing this, why are we doing this? Frame it up with some kind of goals. How do we know what success looks like? For a lot of groups coming in that want to learn like pipelines, success for them is, I have a pipeline. And so that's cool, but you have to figure out how do you know the pipeline's working for you? How do you know it's right? And so we would need binary measures and tests against the pipelines. And of course, the team figures out how they're going to work together inside the dojo. And we also have them do this thing on the right called a skill matrix. Tell them about the skill matrix, Jen.
The skills matrix, super important. We say, hey, what are the skills needed to accomplish your goals and measures? Line those up at the top. Then we, on the far left side, we say, okay, who are all the team members participating in the challenge, and what is their skill set? Are they, can they teach it? Do they know it, and can they teach it? And who wants to learn it? And so we can quickly identify where there perhaps is a gap, or maybe Joel is a whiz at Java, and I'm not so much, right? Now we can create an opportunity to pair. He can show me a little bit about what he's doing. I can perhaps teach him how to write a badass formula in Excel. I mean, so yeah. And if it turns out that perhaps Joel is the Brent, right, from the Phoenix project, if Joel is Brent, maybe he can teach the entire team that's in the dojo. So create mobbing opportunities as well.
Yeah. Again, the dojo is about learning first, and so we're trying to make these things visible to everybody. We're also trying to show everybody, this is actually a bad picture. I blame Dion for this. Look, you don't want to have 3 measures. You see a check, a circle, and an X. You only need to have 2. And here's the thing, it's can you do it and teach it, or do you want to learn? Because if you have the third, where it's like, I know it, but I can't teach it, everybody chooses that one because they don't want to teach.
Right.
So you make it very binary. And so this way, people also see not everybody knows everything, and we can help each other. So again, it's about showing groups that they can help each other through these things. And then sprints. Look, teams do 2.5-day sprints in the dojo. A couple things here. Who here in here does the agile practice stuff? Just a quick show of hands. Yep. So that's good. Everybody kind of loves their planning meetings and their backlog grooming and all that kind of stuff because it's really easy and really smooth and nothing ever goes wrong. Yeah, sometimes people get stuck in these things where their agile ceremonies take hours. Well, here's the thing. If you're planning for 2.5 days, you can't spend 4 hours estimating a story. So like the sprints, as Jen mentioned, it creates like psychological safety. If we're wrong, it's not a big deal. But here's the other thing. The whole estimating thing, not that estimating's bad, but it kind of goes out the window because it's an easy question. Is it too big? Yep, we got to figure out something else. No, let's do that. But we frame the sprints and outcomes. It's not just about the pieces, it's about the outcome. What's the next best thing we can do? Is it next best investment learning? Is the next best investment some kind of delivery aspect? Like, what's the next best investment? And then what do we need to do to get there? So it's always framed in outcomes. It's not about, is this a 2 or a 5 or, a super small or whatever other people are doing here. It's just, can we get it done and is it interesting? And here's some stuff that teams might learn, just to give you an idea. Again, I'm going to go past this one quick, but the point of the matter is teams aren't in here to learn one thing. They're in here learning lots of things while they're building stuff. And so this is just some examples where they're doing new product development or doing cloud migration, some stuff that's happening inside dojos. And then teams leave, hopefully.
Most of the time. No, I'm kidding. The hardest part is getting the team to come in, right? We say, hey, you're here for 6 weeks, and they go, oh, we're juggling all these other things. Once they come in, they don't want to leave. We had a team in the dojo for almost a year. They came in for a 6-week challenge, completed, started a 2nd-week engagement, got through that. They started a 3rd in January. Once our space is different, and that's really that's the goal of having a place to go to. You have to make it a little different. And the biggest thing we get is oh, we don't have this anywhere else, and we really like working together at this table, and things are super easy. So yes, they do eventually leave. Yeah.
And when they do leave, we also do this little survey with them to see, what are you going to learn next? And how are you going to make sure these things stick? And we check in with them. Because you don't want to just say, it's been fun, kind of get out of the basement kind of stuff. You got to make sure the things they're doing are working for them. This is a picture that I just like, so I put it in here, right? So look, when teams come into the dojo, they learn tools. But look, tools change, and that's kind of the intent of this picture that I think Jen or Roger took down. But on the right, you got all the tools. But look, the tools are going to change. You can't be fixated on the tools. And in the middle is the practices. Because the practices are going to live longer, and you need to learn the practices so that when the tools change, you're okay. But fundamentally, they're grounded in principles, and so we need to understand those and make sure we have shared principles and shared values. And so this is just a nice, simple thing you could do anywhere. Just say, look, the tools are going to change, but are we aligned around principles and practices?
So the space. There's a lot of stuff here. I'm not going to cover them all. I think the things that are most important is make sure you've got large TVs so you can create opportunities for mobbing, right? It's super helpful when somebody can just plug in and go, hey, let's review the code. It's on a giant screen. Everybody can follow along. Demo presentation area. That's another thing to have. Each team that comes into the dojo is on a different journey, right? They may be learning some of the same practices. What we want to do is create opportunities to share even amongst those teams. So our coaches sync up and go, hey, my team's demoing this today. Maybe your team could benefit. And so we create this area where we all get together and we can watch and learn from other teams' demonstrations. Whiteboard space. You can never have enough whiteboard space. If you've ordered 10, order 10 more. It's just super easy. You know, it is a bit challenging when folks aren't in the room, but to have a quick combo, we can sketch it out, throw it up on the whiteboard, roll that around. Yeah. We talked about information radiators, externalized memory. So basically what that is a couple slides ago, we talked about the chartering and the working agreements and the skills matrix. We actually we call those artifacts, and we post those around the team. So we've got space, so the team is reminded, you know, when they're in the middle of their sprint planning, like, hey, is this stuff that we're doing, does it still line up with the goals and measures that we talked about earlier today? And if it doesn't, then why are we doing it? Yeah, those are the big ones.
Yeah. The other thing I'd mention for you all, if you're going to do this space, is the space needs to be different. It needs to feel unique, to kind of get people out of their norm. The one big thing at Verizon that we did, so like in many organizations, presumably people kind of work in cubes, right? And so in the dojo, there are no cubes. You get a table, and that's different because now I got to look at you. We've always worked together, but I'll never look at you. And now I realize we are people, and it's really uncomfortable for the first couple days. But then you start realizing, like, yeah, we are kind of in this thing together. And so, like, you got to make it feel different. You got to make people feel like they're part of it, something different, part of a team, and coming in together.
Yeah, it's super cool because once you build those relationships, like we saw it with that team that was there for almost a year, they were challenging each other. Like,
Yeah.
no, we're not going to do it that way, you know? So, yeah, being face-to-face. I mean, I can't be mean to Joel when he's standing right next to me.
She tries.
It's so much easier to do it over I am, but I can't do it when he's next to me.
So there you go. If you're trying to do a dojo, the flow to think about, you know, set the stage for success, make sure the teams coming in are the right teams. Realize that there is no curriculum. Every team is going to be different, and so you got to frame it up with them. What are we going to learn? How are we going to get through this together? And then what else, Jen?
Gosh, what else? I don't know. Take it.
Focusing on the next best thing for your sprints, you know, focusing on outcomes for groups, and make sure when they leave, you're supporting them, that they're not just kind of off on their own. So now everybody's super jazzed about doing dojos, and then reality is going to hit because you're going to do these in your organization, and teams are going to get jazzed, and then you're going to find out all of the pains that don't affect teams really fast. Tell them about some friction around learning. What do you think?
So folks come in and they're like, listen, we're juggling 15 different things. We just have to get it done, right? I think, you know, we're all doing that. I mean, even in the dojo as an ops manager, I am juggling 15 different things at a time too. It requires just a change in that mindset to say, okay, we're going to learn. The beauty about bringing in your own backlog and your own work is that you just kind of get to it, right? As opposed to somebody kind of just teaching, standing up and going, yeah, we're going to do this. And then you'll go back and figure out how to apply it to your job. In the dojo, it's happening, right? Whether you thought you were an ace at, oh yeah, we're agile, we do stand-ups, to a 2-hour stand-up is probably not a good use of your time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's one of the things. There's probably something else.
There's more in here. Look,
Yeah.
if you're trying to do on a dojo, people are going to get freaked out because they say, yeah, it's okay, you can learn, but just don't learn too much because you got stuff to do, right? And that's just kind of a weird thing to happen. One of the early teams, and this isn't a knock on anybody, it's just kind of how a lot of organizations work. The team was like in their, second week, and one of the engineers was saying, I don't really care about that other stuff. I have to do these other microservices because my manager asked for a list of all the microservices because obviously that's a good idea. And so he had to create a list of all the microservices that he was going to build, and then he had to start building them. And so it was just this weird thing where you had to work with the managers, but I also had to tell the dude, I go, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you start. I care what we finish. And he had this kind of weird look on his face. I was like, it's not about kind of like these random things that you got to do. We're trying to learn things together, kind of be a part of it or don't. And so if you got friction around teams learning stuff, that's not a team problem. That's kind of up and outside the team that we got to solve. And dojos are going to make this thing blaringly obvious. And you get some constraints. I had some run-ins with security, but I'll let Jen tell you about some other run-ins.
Well, that's the biggest one. Then there's things like, getting access to repos. Somebody earlier talked about like, hey, we got to go in and fill in a form, and then some other guy reviews it, and then by the time you actually get access to the AWS console, it's maybe a week or two. So those are the things that present themselves, and we realize, right, that it's not just applicable to that team, it's most likely applicable to the entire enterprise. So we can take those learnings and apply them, and we've got what do we have? Oh God, those weekly calls, right? Where it's like, hey, this is a bigger problem, and we should probably invest some time and figure out a solution so that we can make it easier for the rest of the world.
Yeah. Like when you're doing, even if you're doing 2-week sprints, if on day 1 you're trying to get access to a repo and you don't get access to the repo until like day 9, yeah, it's painful and you complain about it, but you find other things to do. If you're doing a 2-day sprint and you need access to the repo, you can't wait 9 days. It's just kind of asinine. And so you find out all these problems that teams are experiencing, that developer experience, like they're saying at Walmart, is hurting. And you don't really know it when you have these big kind of batch deliveries, but as soon as you start shrinking things down, you start seeing all the friction, and you just got to solve it. And then you got this kind of stuff going on. The bias. We're always right. We just know what to do until you realize that you don't know what to do. And then you got to figure out, okay, now that we know we don't know how to do stuff, we don't know what to do, we got to figure out what we should do about it. And this is actually this is some stuff from a friend, Jeff Patton, talking about Delta Next, flushing out assumptions and then figuring out your biases to figure out kind of how to move forward. So in summary, if you do these dojos, that'd be awesome, get jazzed about them, but just realize helping teams is cool, and it's fun, and it's going to do a lot of good. You're just going to hit a lot. You're going to find a lot of things that you're going to have to address as well. All right, so now you're jazzed, and you're going to start your own dojo. Where are you going to start? Yeah, that's your first question. You got to figure out, what are you going to focus on? I know Walmart said they were going to standardize platforms. That's a nice way of doing it. You can't serve everybody, so you got to figure out what you're going to focus on and how you're going to serve it. If you can't create a beautiful space that, like Jen created, you can start with a small space. How is the space we started with?
It looks similar to this, right? It was a cube farm. We found, a set of cubes that normally sat 18. We went in and we ripped out the credenzas, and we were like, all right, we're going to seat double now. So get very comfortable with your coworkers. We wanted to make the space different, right? How many times have you driven to work and you're on autopilot? You forgot how you got there. When you go to a space and you're working in a different environment, it's going to allow you to think about things differently. So if all you have is this, that's cool, but try your best to change it up a bit, just so that people know, hey, this is a little bit different. The other thing too is, if your dojo looks like the rest of the building, people aren't going to want to come down, right? Because they're like, well, I got this at my desk, no big deal. So yeah, we started out super basic, and then we got some funding, and we were able to build out this really beautiful space.
Yeah. And so this is not a pitch for me, but if you're going to do these things, just realize that just because somebody is a really good technical lead doesn't mean they're a really good coach, right? So like, we do some of these things on purpose to create safety for these things, but you need to have somebody that can help guide these teams. And by guiding the team doesn't mean you have to answer all their questions. It means you have to look at kind of where their questions are at, maybe see where they're going and say, it's okay if they're going to mess up because it's not that bad. Don't let them walk off the cliff, but maybe let them go through the thorn bush. And so you have to find people that have these balances of soft skills and tech skills and that can do these things well and help grow your own coaches internally. Is that cool?
That's super.
All right. So you're going to start your own, know what you're going to do. You don't have to go all in. You don't have to spend $500,000 on this beautiful space. You can go to teams and start there. Just realize that you need to start with good coaches that can help guide and lead teams and facilitate the right discussions and not just give answers. If you want to learn more about some stuff we did back in the day, here's actually a recorded webinar and some stuff. This is a rhetorical question because we don't have time for questions, but we'll be around for a little bit. And then, of course, everybody's favorite, some stuff from Deming, right? The greatest waste is the waste of humans' potential, the waste of lost abilities of people. So
Yeah.
that's what we got. There you go.
Yeah.
Round of applause for Jen.
One quick thing.
Oh.
No. One quick thing. We are also looking for coaches. We don't have a fancy website, but my hiring manager is here. Roger, wave. Yeah. Anybody want to be a coach? Hit us up. And secondly, we offer tours at the Verizon Dojo. So if you want to come out and check out our space, we'd love to have you. Share what we got. Thank you so much.